welcome to episode 4 of the Poker Face podcast. Rest in Metal.
The lyrics are temporary. I just slug out whatever's in my head. We can zhuzh it up later.
There's no zhuzhing. It's a turd. I don't want a zhuzhed turd.
Hello, Jerry. You sitting that way because you've zhuzhed your turds?
Sounds like something you might get at a French restaurant.
I think it's something that rich people would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some brilliant performances in this week's episode.
I thought so, especially from the supporting cast, who I thought were very strong.
Yes, and a little a nod to a friend of Poker Face.
Indeed.
Which we'll get to.
Of course.
Do you feel the episodes are sustaining a level, or do you think they're building up?
Well, this episode, I think, was different from last week, certainly. It had a bit more... it was a bit more comedic, I thought.
Yeah. So when they first launched the show, this was the last of the 4 that came out initially together.
Right.
So my recollection is it didn't review as well as the first 3. But I thought it was good.
I enjoyed it.
Like I say, some good performances. Story's fun. Obviously at this point you need to get over the fact that people keep dying around Charlie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a good one.
For sure.
Should we just fire straight into the summary?
No, give us the socials first.
Okay. It's the same as it's been for a decade, at Columbo Podcast on Twitter and Facebook. Also, Threads and Instagram, if you're that way inclined. And show notes are available at columbopodcast.com, where we like to engage in a bit of conversation if we can. You can also find the show on YouTube, as well as your usual podcast providers, whatever you prefer. I
was having a glance at some iTunes reviews earlier today.
Were you? Of our show?
Yeah, Columbo Podcast.
Bit vain.
It's all 5 stars, apart from the occasional one. But this one I thought was funny because it was disappointing, apparently, because we were... it was too chatty and too much analysis. Now...
What was he expecting from a podcast?
Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but the raison d'etre of the podcast is to chat and analyse. This was about Columbo Podcast.
Yeah, it's a couple of years old.
Yeah. So yeah, a podcast where we chat and analyse the show apparently was too chatty and analytical. So yeah, that was amusing, I thought.
Yeah, you can have too much of a good thing, it seems.
That's true. But in future, 5 stars, please, everyone.
Yeah, if you're not going to give us 5 stars, then why bother going to the effort of loading up the review screen?
Although I do prefer a 1 star to anything else. If it's not 5, it's like a 2 or a 3 star. Come on.
At least be funny with it.
At least hate it.
I like the idea though. I think we've talked about this previously on one of our other shows. I like the idea of a 4-star review. What is it that we could have done?
Something, yeah. Well, maybe it's in comparison to other podcasts that the person likes.
That doesn't make any sense.
Of course it does, yeah. If you love... It's like if your favourite movie is The Godfather and that's a 10.
Yeah. Everything else is
at best
9.9.
Yeah.
Right, summary.
Let's crack on.
In Rest in Metal, we meet Ruby Ruin, lead singer of metal band Doxology, one-hit wonders who continue to tour in order to scrape a living, while their former drummer takes all the royalties from their only popular song. When their new drummer dies during a gig, Doxology looks set to profit from a great new song he'd written, but an angry Charlie starts to realise something is wrong. Without enough proof to persuade police, Charlie is forced to take other steps to expose the band's malfeasance. But will Doxology get their comeuppance, or is a second hit record in the bag?
Thank you, Ian. A warehouse. You insisted earlier today that this was at a brand name shop.
I did think so, but they've stolen the initials.
You told me I was wrong when I said I didn't think you were right. He says, no, I can assure you.
You didn't say you didn't think I was right, you said you didn't know.
No, I said it wasn't. You said this was what...
I thought it was Best Buy.
Best Buy, and I said, well, I don't think it is. You forced me to go and get to
check, yeah, I wanted to make sure.
Screenshot, and when I did, you sort of mumbled about, oh, well, you were never quite sure.
Yeah. I was sure.
Made a fool of yourself.
Well, no, I don't think that's the case at all.
Embarrass yourself.
Clearly the impression they're trying to give.
I thought it was more like, what is it, Home Depot, have they got that? Yeah. That's what it is.
I don't even know what Best Buy is.
I think Best Buy is more of
some kind.
Yeah, I think it's more like a Home Depot or in a Costco. In this country, maybe a B&Q.
Supersized B&Q. Somewhere between B&Q and IKEA.
Yeah, anyway, that's where we begin.
Well, I watched about 3 seconds of this and then stopped and had to go and listen to the whole of that song that was playing.
Did you enjoy it?
I did.
Arthur's theme by Christopher Cross. Have you... I don't know why I'm asking this. Have you seen Arthur?
I have.
No, you've not, have
That's
you?
a lie, yeah, I've not seen it.
No, I didn't think so. With Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli, yes. Very good. I actually even liked Arthur 2, On the Rocks.
Did you?
And I've seen the remake from 2011 with Russell Brand in the Arthur role, the Dudley Moore role.
Was that as good?
No.
Okay. Anyhow, we start off in this sort of staff room area.
We do. It's there's a number of depressing cuts, a little bit like in The Office.
Okay.
Certainly Office UK, I'm not sure about the States, but it's just showing these sort of mundane activities and things that go on in this sort of large corporate environment. It's quite soul destroying. It's depressing, yeah.
We finally come across on the shop floor a young woman, or maybe middle-aged woman at this stage, who is scanning stuff.
Yeah, 40s, a young woman, I think that's
I think it's fair to say young.
fine, yeah. Yeah, she's scanning things and checking them off on a list and a clipboard with little enthusiasm. We're getting the feeling that she's plodding along, not particularly happy or enthused.
We cut to her sitting outside, presumably the back of the shop.
Loading bay, yeah.
She's smoking and texting away while her colleagues note that the radio is playing her hit single from many years ago.
Yeah, when she was a rock star. And I think that what you've seen in the first minute or so, it conveyed an awful lot of information about who she is, where her life is.
Yep.
It was very efficiently done.
Yeah, so they date it by saying one of them had it on CD, which immediately takes you back probably 90s, early 2000s. And then another member of staff says he tells his daughter that he's not too old to rock because he works with Ruby Ruin, which doesn't really enthuse Ruby at all. She looks disenchanted by the entire thing.
I think this is the first time we hear Staplehead.
Yes, did you like it?
It's all right.
Didn't catch your earworm?
Yeah.
No. Catch your earworm? Whatever. A wee bit later on, we see Ruby, now a bit more energetic, approaching a guy at a sort of mobile coffee truck, asking if he wants to do some roadieing on their new tour.
I'm not sure if he's just getting something or if he actually owns or runs this.
He seems to be making his own drink, but I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I think his name is Victor.
Yeah, he declines the opportunity to roadie and work the merch stand, and we then hear a tannoy announcement.
Yeah, and again, that's just, it sort of shows that you would think a lot of people would be right up for going in the road with a rock band, metal band, but he's immediately says, nah, you're okay. So it sort of places them in, what their levels are at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and over the tannoy, we hear that there's a visitor for Ruby in the break room.
When we get there, there's a barefooted man sitting at the table. He's stolen a yogurt out the fridge with somebody else's name on it, and he is here to interview to be a drummer for the band.
Yeah, he's dirty, he's smelly looking, he's bare feet up on the table, and he's eating this yogurt like a dog. He's slurping at it like a dog. It's disgusting.
He's also a bit overexcited.
He is very excited. His name's Gavin. He's a younger chap. I think he's in his 20s.
Yeah, he says he's been a fan of doxology since he was a toddler.
Which doesn't, again, help or lift the spirits of Ruby.
No, and as you mentioned, we get told pretty much all we need to know very quickly and efficiently when he says that he answered the ad for a drummer that he saw on Craigslist.
Mm-hmm. She's not quite as excited as him, but does tell him that it's a 3-week tour of small venues, pubs and what have you, before ending in a bigger one in Milwaukee, opening for Krampus.
He thinks that's quite cool and confirms to her that he does have his own gear, including an amp, which confuses Ruby a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a Tama drum kit, and she doesn't know why he wants an amp. What does he say?
It's because he runs his backing vocal through his fuzz pedal to get an extra crunchy effect.
Sounds terrible. He demonstrates it. He's quite physical and vocal when he talks and he moves. Although he's annoying, he's got a charm about him. He's keen.
Certainly is keen. She tells him he's in, which makes him very excited, or even more excited, and he promises not to let her down before she tells him that they're all in their 40s and he needs to take a bath before showing up.
And she's not joking.
Absolutely not.
In the RV, this is their vehicle, the band.
Tour bus, yeah. We've got a goat-looking Mr. Tumnus lookalike guy called Al.
Yeah, he's playing guitar and sings a wonderfully dreadful song that rhymes macaroni with Uncle Tony and alimony.
It's a divorce song. It's quite sad, as you might imagine.
That's a recurring theme with him.
I thought he was great, for what it's worth. He was one of the stars of this episode for me.
For sure. Ruby shouts at him to stop, and he admits to Esky, it's another band member, that his divorce is not going well.
No, she says they need to come up with something fresh, new material, but Esky says people just want Staplehead. Well, that's okay, they want Staplehead, but you need to sustain the rest of the gig.
Yeah, she's keen not to be seen as this one-hit wonder novelty act. She wants to be current and
She doesn't want to be a nostalgia act,
Yeah.
essentially touring on past glories. But I think they're kind of heading that way. I think Esky says he's just moved back in with his mother,
Yes.
and he's getting his AARP membership this year, which means he's turning 50.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
I thought he was studying law and doing all that type of thing. He
Yeah.
keeps mentioning that. So he has given up, I think, or he's given up on the idea of making it massive. He's sort of accepted his law. He's doing this, but probably not with much hope of...
Just going through the motions. It's something that you can do, but he's got other irons in the fire at the moment. As you say, he's studying, I think, at some kind of either online or night school.
I like the line he says it's not like a proper degree course at a university. It's not even substantial enough to be classed as selling out.
Yes, no. Ruby's of the opinion that they need to get back to where they were with acts like Krampus opening for them. And they then start riffing a little bit.
In a number of scenes we can see her sort of motivating and cajoling the rest of the
She's the leader.
band. Of course, yeah.
The Gwen Stefani, if you will.
Okay.
She left her band though. Anyhow, meanwhile, we hear Gavin through the back of the tour bus laughing at something he's watching on his iPad.
Now, I was very proud of myself.
Where are you? What happened?
Well, I was watching this on a laptop myself, so it was quite a small screen, and I spied what he was looking at, and I thought to myself, I've got a note here. Is this Benson?
One of your favourites?
No, but I don't know if this was just in Scotland, the UK, or worldwide. Benson was a synonym for it was a pejorative term.
Yeah, you get called a Benson if you were like a loner,
No.
I think.
Nope, not. Benson if you were like a lackey, a dog's body. Benson was the head of a household. He was a butler to
If
start off
you were
with.
put upon, maybe then.
Yeah, so if you at school, I always remember if you had to do something for the teacher or you done something for someone else, you'd be called Benson.
Right. I
Like
think maybe just slightly before my time.
it would have been, yeah. So a Benson was like a little dog's body. Go and get me a drink, Benson. Esky's got a question.
What's that?
He asks Ruby where she found Gavin.
Yes, she says Juilliard.
Yeah, she's been sarcastic and then says, no, actually it was Craigslist.
We then skip ahead to their first performance. It's a gig in Cleveland at what appears to be a restaurant. Maybe it's a bar, but everyone's eating and nobody's listening.
Yeah, I think we get a few shots of Ruby in leather or rubber on stage in different bars in front of, these sort of disinterested small crowds.
We see Al telling the roadie how he wants his mic set up as well at one point.
We do the height is get tape round.
Yep, and he's set up exactly correct.
I have to say that whoever's booked this band seems to not understand their audience.
No.
They
Yeah, because they're not interested. They don't care.
Some of them are quite elderly, I
Yeah.
think. And they certainly don't want to be seeing Ruby wailing, I wouldn't have thought.
No. Back on this bus RV thing, we've got Gavin, as you say, now watching Benson see the credits this
Well,
time.
he thinks it's hysterically funny.
And Ruby starts singing a song about a merch girl, which is pretty terrible.
It's horrible. However, they find this acceptable despite the lack of a bridge.
Yeah. The driver, Deuteronomy, who's also their roadie,
Yep.
he's not listening. He's got audiobooks on.
Yes. They ask him what he thinks, and I think he's being diplomatic.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to say it's terrible. And so, Ruby turns to their new drummer for his input.
Hey, kid, what do you think?
Why don't you guys just try and write another song like Staplehead? I mean, Staplehead, that song is, good. So, just try and, make another song like that.
Why don't I just fucking traipse into the fucking forest and capture a bejeweled fucking Pegasus?
That would be rad, too.
Every second of every day, I try and write a song like Staplehead. I remember the first time I heard it, that feeling was like a needle made of ice going into my brain. Like seeing the face of God and fucking God saying, that's what a fucking hit feels like. I've been chasing that feeling for the past 20 years and never come close.
Staplehead's a fucking curse.
That song ruined my life.
But the song is your big hit.
We didn't write it.
What?
Yeah, we didn't fucking write it. Our drummer Belinda did, and she gets all the royalties. Now that bitch is selling leggings in the suburbs.
But you guys continue to play the song.
We have to. Every gig. Have to. And when we're not on stage, we hear it everywhere.
And we don't get 1 red cent. It's a fucking curse.
Fuck that, though. Tonight, we open with Merch Girl. I got a feeling about this.
2, 3, and.
We then get a good cut into them finishing Merch Girl on stage and one person applauding.
Yeah, the sound of one hand clapping, I think. Yeah, it's a fairly energetic performance in any case. But their mood is not lifted when a drunk demands that they play Staplehead. Ruby initially refuses, but when an eager Gavin counts him in, the band follow and the drunk rocks out.
Before lobbing a stapler at Gavin and splitting his head open.
Yes.
Which he seems to enjoy.
And at the climax of the song, the drummer performs Ruby's Screech and tells the small crowd that they love them, usually sort of trying to take the lead here.
Yeah, which causes Ruby to punch him in the face at the end of the track.
Who warns him never to upstage her like that again or she'll break more than his effing face.
And we then see blood splashing onto his drum kit. A wee bit later, we're at a motel and we see Ruby on a balcony shouting down to or across to Gavin to get him to come over.
Yes, what they have here, they've got like a U-Haul where they take the equipment.
In a room, we see Al and Esky looking at TikToks of this guy Krampus jumping out on people.
Which supposedly this is what's made them.
Yeah, it's consistently viral and he's got a big audience now.
Al is also taking a picture of the stapler that hit Gavin as he thinks there may be money in it, like on eBay.
Yes.
And at this point, the annoying drummer himself enters with Ruby to party.
And he's got a bag full of drinks.
Has he? Or he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels?
In one hand, he's got a carrier bag as well.
Right, okay. However, the other three decline and deflate his party mood.
Yeah, Esky's got to get up early in the morning. Al gets acid reflux from alcohol and Ruby's been sober for 10 years.
Well, I think this is quite accurate as well. You find that a lot of bands now, even with bands with reputations of being sort of hard partying, don't. Alice Cooper, for example, doesn't drink and loves golf and all that type of stuff. I think most of them have jacked it in.
Yeah. At this point, we get an apology from Ruby for thumping Gavin at the end of the song, and he thanks them for putting up with him, and he wants to play them a song that he's written.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that he's a nice enough sort of kid here. He's quite sincere about his apology. He understands as well that he's hard work, which is always nice to see.
A bit of self-awareness.
Yeah.
This song that he's written, it's called Sucker Punch, and he's got the lyrics written down on a crumpled sheet of paper.
I mean, from the opening bar, it's clear that they're impressed, and when he starts singing, we get a nice effect which represents what Ruby
described earlier. Yeah,
yes, this sort of this
epiphany almost. Yeah,
ice, a shot of ice through the brain or the head, something from God. Yeah.
When he finishes, though, she doesn't let on to him that she knows how good the song is.
No, she's literally stunned at first, and I think she notices his signature at the bottom of the music and lyric.
Yeah, it's almost like history repeating itself for her.
Yeah.
So she tells him to keep working on it, and when he heads off to his own room, the three of them that are left agree it was a great song.
Yeah, they acknowledge that it's got hit written all over it, and Esky laments the fact that it's going to be another Staplehead situation.
But Ruby tells him it does not have to be.
No. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Publish or Perish.
Okay.
If you remember, that's what it was, the book about Vietnam, The Crazy.
Right. Is that when they blew up the junkyard?
Yes. Yeah. From there, we have a montage of them interfering with the Gavin's amp before Ruby fires Deuteronomy for apparently dragging them down with his negative energy.
Yeah, and we then see her telling Al that he'll live while Esky shows up with a bag from Hot Topic.
Yep, and reminds her that it goes against his vegan lifestyle, so I'm assuming it's leather gear.
It must be.
We're now at the venue.
They're setting up and Ruby stops Gavin to tell him he can do the scream on Staplehead.
I think, is this maybe a diversion so that they can mess about and plug in the amp, but he won't notice?
They also need him to do the scream. That's
of course
the key point of the song.
Yeah.
He tries to refuse, but she insists, and then we see some folk plugging things into other things and things buzzing.
A little bit later, obviously, Gavin can't help himself, and with the adrenaline flowing from playing live, he takes Ruby's nod, and when she hits the pedal, he screams into the microphone.
There's a sizzling and then a power cut.
And we see him fall to the ground, obviously electrocuted. Do you know that 18 Spinal Tap drummers died? And I think this is a reference to that.
There's a lot of drummers. And we see then almost by torchlight that he's dead and there's smoke coming out of his face.
We then transition to the three killers copying the music and lyrics into their own book and setting Gavin's work on fire.
That's them got their hit then.
Ah, looks like it.
We then hear Charlie's theme, and we're more than a third of the way into this episode at this point.
Well, that's what I've got here. I noted 18 minutes, and this is also the shortest episode so far.
Yeah.
So that's quite a...
There's less than 25 minutes left.
Yeah, quite a brave decision.
Yeah. It's one of my questions for the end, but we'll just do it now. That's how it's covered it. Charlie's sitting under a tree talking to a guy, and then a guy in a truck rolls up and needs 3 guys for their jobs. This must be one of those sort of areas where work required.
That's it. Sometimes you get picked, sometimes you don't, depending on the gig and how many people are needed.
She does not get picked.
But shortly later, she's approached by Ruby herself.
She's doing a crossword at this point. I kind of tried to free down the crossword and see if it was anything relevant or interesting. I didn't pick up anything particularly. Anyhow, Victor has told Ruby that Victor was the guy we saw earlier on at the coffee truck, that Charlie was looking for work, and she says desperately.
Charlie herself's a little starstruck and can't help but shout out Staplehead at her, which again won't endear her to Ruby.
No, I wouldn't have thought. So Ruby asks if Charlie has a car and offers her a job as the merch girl for their tour, which might pay badly, but at least you get to see the worst parts of America. Charlie agrees, and as you say, she knows Staplehead and yells it in Ruby's face.
So we see at this point then that it's now Charlie who's towing the U-Haul equipment
that you saw earlier at the motel.
And we catch up with him playing various dives that we saw earlier.
It's the same shots, or not the same shots, it's the same scenes from earlier, but from a different perspective. They don't do a lot of this in the earlier episodes, but in this one they do lean into it a bit more.
Yeah.
So we see them, but with Charlie included. We see the Cleveland gig where the folk are eating. We see the scene with Al adjusting his mic. We see the stapler gets lifted off of Charlie's merch table. And we then move into real time as Charlie tends to the gash on Gavin's face.
Yeah, they're back in a motel room.
There's a good reference back to episode 2 as she glues it shut.
Indeed.
And she then refers to the merch girl song, which she calls slanderous, and says that she's starting to think that maybe Ruby is a dick.
Gavin doesn't want to agree because I think he's still in awe of this sort of rock goddess.
He definitely is. But he asks whether he can ride with Charlie rather than in the RV the next day, which she agrees to.
We find ourselves at a diner. I don't know if it's breakfast or lunch, but Gavin's man-child persona is grating in even Charlie, and she has to shout at him to stop drumming on his plate as they eat.
He's got a small camera there that he uses to film his bare feet during gigs to check his footwork back, because he's not entirely away with the fairies. He's a technician.
He's a professional, yeah. He wants to improve, and I think he's passionate about what he does. He just, sometimes he comes across overly eager.
He picks up a leaflet at this point. He sings some words from it, and Charlie calls him a magpie. He says at this point he went to Juilliard, and Charlie doesn't pick up a lie. So we assume this is true.
Yeah, I'm sure that's where he's been trained.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back in the car, Charlie's upset with him again. She asks him to treat her house with a little bit more respect.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his smelly feet hanging out of her window, and I had to double check, make sure that it wasn't Quentin Tarantino directing this episode, as we know he's got quite the foot fetish.
There's litter all over the dash, and
this is an odd one. So she says she doesn't want to come across as all Felix Unger, which I looked into. Felix Unger was a heart surgeon who performed the first artificial heart transplant. I'm not sure what that's got to do with this.
Maybe she thinks she sounds heartless, which is
that's quite. He would.
She doesn't want to rip his heart out.
I mean, before I looked up, I assumed it was someone who was maybe into being clean and tidy.
There's another Felix Unger.
I suppose.
Did you notice Charlie had a tattoo?
No.
So it's on her forearm, just near her elbow. I couldn't work out what it was. At first I thought it was like a Space Invader guy, but then it was maybe like 2 holes with like a desk tidy almost with stuff in the... I couldn't figure it out.
We'll need to keep an eye on that.
So it might come up again, yeah.
Right, okay.
I don't think it is a desk tidy, I just mean like that sort of idea. Charlie notes at this point that Gavin is very committed to not wearing shoes.
Indeed,
and we get a phrase that might be regretted by him later on when he says that if you don't wear shoes, you're not grounded. Or if you do wear shoes, you're not grounded.
Yeah, I think he says, you have to feel the earth. He's he's a bit of a hippie.
Yeah, but these references to grounded and earth.
Of course. Now also, before we get to that, I think he sort of asks her questions quite innocently, but it makes her understand the life that she's leading and going to be leading. I think she maybe is forced to consider this more than what she had wanted to.
Yeah, he's asking why she lives in her car and so on. Yeah. He then starts drumming on the dash. First of all, the beat of a bridge that they'd crossed, and then the sound of the rain and
wind wipers as well.
Yeah, and Charlie calls him a holistic magpie. He's just kind of gathering sounds that he hears.
And I think, she appreciates him.
He's an awareness of what's around him.
Yeah, but he's a genuine guy. I think that, that's probably his problem as well. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's too open, but he's
Unfiltered.
these emotions, which has its pros and its cons, I suppose.
Yeah. We then get another scene that we've witnessed before.
Yeah, we return to Ruby smoking at the motel. Now, I quite like how these moments are signified by callbacks. So earlier we've seen her standing there with the cigarette in her hand. It was a close-up.
Yep.
And we go back to that, although this time it's a little bit earlier.
Seconds earlier, yeah.
Yep. And we see her speaking with Charlie, who has more time for Gavin, apparently, than she does.
Hi. I owe you one. For taking that little shitheel off our hands for the day.
Well, that kid really took a hit for you, right?
God, I hope he didn't lose any precious brain cells.
You might give him a break, is all I'm saying.
He's a vibe killer. Can't read a room. It stresses me out.
He's just nervous. He worships you. I gotta tell you, Ruby, I really thought that being on tour with a band was gonna be like, one big party, all fun and bonding, like Spinal Tap, pre-Janine. Not this cliquey, gatekeepy high school bullshit. Consider my eyes open.
It's an odd attitude that Ruby has there about Gavin being a vibe killer. I think it's exactly the opposite. I mean, he's got too much of a vibe. He's too keen.
There were no vibes for him to kill. They were completely depressed.
Yeah, and this sort of injection of youth who loves being on the road, and it's almost like, they're allowed to sort of relive the first time, the feeling through him. I thought that's maybe what you would need, what you'd want, as opposed to being jaded and cynical about the whole thing. Yeah,
this is the first one, or second one maybe, but I did quite enjoy every time that you get a conversation between Ruby and Charlie in this episode. They were really good. I think the actors know each other quite well and obviously work well together.
They do. We'll get to that in the trivia.
Oh, okay. After the end of that conversation, we then see again Ruby shouting on Gavin that we saw in the bit before Charlie showed up.
We're now at the venue, or a venue, where Gavin, having saw Charlie talk with Ruby, thanks her for whatever voodoo she imparted, causing Ruby to change her view and allow him, or ask him to do the scream.
I've not noted this down very well. I've written Gavin approaches Gavin to thank Charlie. Anyway, yes, as you say, she is happy for him, and he gives her a camera, I think, to take some pictures of the gig.
Yeah, well, I think, he wants her to capture maybe the scream. We
should mention, we didn't, I don't think, say earlier on, he took a photo of her in the car, which she objected to.
Yes.
And he threw it out the window.
Yeah.
So we skip ahead to him dying during Staplehead as Charlie's taking photos, and she looks utterly stunned as the power cuts out. And we then get a wee fast forward to the police. It's like the end of their investigation. They're about to leave. They've already solved this crime.
The cops have bagged up the amp, and one of them tells the rest of the band and the onlooking Charlie that Gavin was electrocuted. Apparently the mic wasn't grounded, and so when he touched it, it was like kissing a lightning bolt.
It seems awfully speedy for them to wrap up their investigations. That's how the police operate in America.
Well, yeah.
So they've been here for 5 minutes. I've solved this crime. Let's move on.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, this thing happened in public. It was an obvious...
But I think even if it was entirely obvious what had happened, would you not just say, okay, well, we'll investigate this for a few days? And
yeah, but I don't even think it's this would go to the coroner who would identify the cause of death. Yeah. Anyway, as he speaks, Charlie looks at the picture that she took during the gig, and the cop goes on to say that they have impounded the amp, but that they can get the rest of their gear back.
Yes, he tells them that as they were all on stage, it could have been a lot worse, and Ruby sighs and says she guesses they got lucky, which piques Charlie's interest.
Yeah, she immediately picks up on this. Obviously, she senses a lie.
Indeed.
We are now in the car.
Yes, we see Charlie smoking in her car, and we also see in the RV, I presume, or somewhere, or the hotel room.
The motel room, yeah.
They're washing the burned ashes of Gavin's lyrics down the drain, and Al is asking whether he can sell his thick-soled shoes on eBay and is told not to even think about it.
We should say that when she's outside, she sees the smoke coming out. She assumes it's a cigarette or whatever, but this encourages her to produce a cigar.
Yeah. Esky can't stop smelling the smell of fried human.
Yeah, and Ruby has to tell him that they've got to keep it together. She's always doing this. So Esky says that they need a demo of the song before the Krampus show, and that they can use Gavin's rhythm track and they'll play over it.
Ruby wants to do it right effing now, but Al doesn't know if there'll be a recording studio in this middle of nowhere.
I think it's Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Now, question I've got here. Would they not be expected to end this little tour after the death, the horrific death of one of their members?
It's quite surprising that they carry on, isn't it?
You can understand that perhaps if it was U2, some massive
But I
band
think
with millions
this is why they frame it as a tribute to him.
Yeah.
They actually set up the drum kit with Rest in Metal on it and stuff like that. So
Of course.
it's obviously the kind of thing, we're going to do this one last
It's
gig.
what
in
he would have
memory.
wanted.
Yeah.
Sure.
At this point, though, they're going to a co-working space in the city centre or town centre where it's basically a podcast studio.
Yeah, they've put on an impromptu gig in one of these podcast studio rooms that they've hired, and Charlie's outside and nodding along. I think she quite likes the new music.
Yeah, it's not entirely soundproof, the booth that they're in,
No.
because everyone in the working space can hear what they're doing.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be. It's built for people talking,
Yeah.
podcast, not guitars and drums.
A young woman approaches Charlie and complains that she had this place booked from 7 minutes ago.
And at this point, Charlie notices that she's wearing a cap that says Murder Girl on it and assumes that she's in some sort of death metal band.
No, that's the name of her podcast. It's like the Columbo podcast merch that we wear.
Oh, yeah. And apparently, yes, she solves murders and this true crime. I quite like the nod to this podcast cliche.
It's also a nod to the fact that Charlie's going around solving murders,
Of course.
which she says is good work if you can get it.
Yes. Back in the road, Charlie seems to have gotten over Gavin's accident pretty quickly and is enjoying herself singing along as she tows the container.
It's amazing what an earworm can do.
Yeah.
She stops and is milkshaked.
Is that what it is? I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're at the Krampus gig. Now, this is some sort of pre-show street party.
Yeah. She gets out of her car asking the young people who threw the milkshake at her car to clean it off, but she's not very successful and is
No.
approached by a man in glasses.
A conservatively dressed middle-aged man who asks if she knows his friend Molly. Now, I'm assuming is that like code for weed, like Molly, like Mary J. Mara? I don't know what Molly is.
It's some kind of...
Yeah, it's a drugs reference.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever called anything Molly.
We could look it up if we wanted.
No, let's not.
Probably ecstasy or something.
Okay.
Or weed or, yeah.
Whatever.
Charlie tells him, nice try, narc, and points out he's wearing pleated khakis.
She's not that bothered, but encourages him to try harder.
There's a Krampus banner above the road, and that's obviously what the fans are here for.
Of course. She then goes to start cleaning up the inside of her car and getting all the sort of garbage, the wrappers and papers.
That
And
Gavin had left behind, yes. But
Yes.
she gets a bit of a surprise.
yeah, she notices something. So inside a room, is it a motel?
Some kind of hotel room, yeah.
She dumps all this onto the bed and reads through some of the words and slogans printed on the different items and realises that they're the basis of this song.
It's an interestingly shot scene because we get real close-ups of her mouth and her eyes as
Yeah.
she's, first of all, singing these words out loud and then realising what's happened.
It's a bit Usual Suspects, isn't it?
Hmm.
And then I think she remembers comparing him to a magpie.
Indeed.
And so, with this new knowledge, she approaches Ruby, who's exiting the RV, in order to have a word with her.
Oh, great. I want to talk to you.
Drop the price of the shirts if you have to. I don't want to bring any of that shit home.
You know, it's about your new song.
What about it?
Well, it's really good, which is how I know you guys didn't write it.
I got a sound check.
Okay, just look me in the eyes and tell me that Gavin didn't write that song.
Gavin wrote that song.
Oh. Well, that's true. But also not cool. He deserves credit.
And what do we deserve? Huh? That song isn't going to bring Gavin back, but it'll change our lives. We've recorded the song. We're playing it tonight. Look, Charlie, I'm just trying to make something good out of something bad.
Well, right, but if it's Gavin's song, people should know that.
Yeah, there are 1,000 ifs. If I hadn't given him the scream, if our roadie hadn't quit and checked the amp, if I had anything left in my garbage life except one last shot, this shot, it is what it is, and I'm taking it. I'm sorry about the kid, truly. I gotta go.
I like the fact there that Ruby didn't lie. Charlie's expecting, and that's, as the audience,
Well,
we're
there is a
expecting
lie
that.
in there. So
Yeah, but initially when she says she didn't lie
Oh,
about him
straight
writing
away,
the
yes.
song,
Yeah.
which I think put Charlie on her heels,
Yes, definitely did.
because I think that what Ruby's doing here, if she hadn't killed him, It's actually understandable and probably fine. He's dead. They've got this song. Like,
Yeah.
I would do the same. I mean, I wouldn't kill him for it,
No.
but I would,
Steal it.
steal it, yeah.
A wee bit later on, we see Charlie pondering presumably everything that's gone on when Krampus tries to jump out at her.
Yes. And she, he's in a sort of portaloo, a toilet, and her natural reaction, her instinct is to punch him straight in the face.
And he falls back into his portaloo and people are delighted.
We meet Deuteronomy again.
Yes, he's now working for Krampus and tells her that he didn't quit, he got canned on some BS.
This is my favourite line. He tells her sincerely, this is a business that's built on relationships and amphetamines.
At this point, Charlie figures out that Ruby was lying about him quitting. She knew that Ruby was lying about something, and this seems to be it.
Yeah. So she asks him about electrocution and if this is something that actually happens, and he confirms that it does and references the Yardbirds in 77. We'll get back to that.
Okay. However, he says that he made sure that Gavin's amp was converted to 3-prong and wouldn't have let him use it if it wasn't safe.
I think he talks about a death capacitor.
Yes. He goes to show her the difference on eBay, and it turns out that Gavin's amp is available for sale, as is the stapler.
Yes, she knows that it's his amp because I think she sees a drop of blood on it.
Yes. And also, I think there's a doxology banner sitting next to it.
Yeah.
In the RV.
Yes, as Al practices his horrendous song with his headphones on and his eyes closed, Charlie enters and crawls along the floor and does indeed find the stapler and amp with the 3-pin plug.
Al's song is about murdering Gavin and includes lyrics like electrocuting a lamb for the keys to the kingdom.
Surely he can't be serious.
Well, it turns out he is, and don't call him Shirley. Charlie continues to hide from Al, but I think she now suspects that he is the killer.
Yeah. We're backstage. Charlie walks in on Ruby removing green M&Ms from a bowl.
This is where a Van Halen reference, right?
It will be, yeah. We can talk about that later on in the trivia. But I think it's one of the times, which shows that she's now invested. She now thinks she is back in her place as a sort of rock star.
Yes. Charlie enters and tells her that Al is working on a song called You Can't Unmurder Someone.
However, she quite calmly says that it sounds metal, but Charlie thinks it's more than that. It's a guilty conscience.
A confession, yeah.
Yeah, unburdening itself, yeah. It's effectively a confession.
Ruby says, however, that equipment mix-ups happen and Deuteronomy wasn't there to help.
This is not necessarily a cliche, but it's a trope of opening up to someone who you think might be an ally, but is also...
Charlie's done this before.
A bad guy. Yeah, she's done it with Mandy last week.
Yeah. I think she's done it even previous to that. In fact, she did it in the very first episode.
Of course.
Al, as Ruby points out, was on stage the whole time, and so were the others. Would he have risked electrocuting everybody? Which is a good point.
Yeah, I think that she shows off her metal-studded boots.
Yes. Charlie thinks that this is a reasonable position, and maybe he didn't do it.
And Ruby tells her that after this show, the final one, she can move on, hit the road, and just to chill.
Yeah, keep it together.
In the RV.
Ruby is not pleased.
She's not as calm in front of the other guys. She kicks over the amp and asks Al what he's doing putting this stuff on eBay. Al says it's vintage, but she can't believe what he's been up to and points out to her two less concerned bandmates that this is in fact evidence.
Esky, however, can't confirm this because he hasn't done criminal law yet.
She orders them again to keep it together. They're so close to getting what they want, and then throws Al's songbook on the floor and shouts at him not to confess to murder in a song.
She leaves, and Esky says it's probably okay, so long as he doesn't sing it under oath.
So we're now at the venue, at the mixing desk, where Charlie borrows a magnifier from Deuteronomy, and as she looks at the picture, she asks about Al and his mic stand.
This is a very specific thing. I'm not sure I buy that she would have noticed this on the photo.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, yes, she immediately goes to this mic stand being set higher. Mm-hmm. And Deuteronomy says, well, maybe he had on different shoes, but she thinks that people with bad backs don't wear new shoes.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
No. Well, maybe not in a gig, I suppose. Especially if he's complaining about something so specific.
It would depend. Not all backs are going to be affected by a pair of shoes.
Well, as it turns out.
Yeah.
You can't see Al's shoes in the photo that she has, so she has no proof of anything.
No, but this gives her an idea.
Yep, she finds Gavin's drum kit, which has been set up, and the words Gavin Rest in Metal painted on the front of it.
Yeah.
There's various sort of flowers and bottles
It's
of
a
drink.
remembrance area now, a sort of shrine almost. And she finds Gavin's camera that he uses to video his footwork.
Yes, it's still below the stool, so she retrieved the memory card from it.
And then backstage, she tells the nervous Krampus...
He flinches when she comes in.
She says, I come in peace before asking to borrow his DSLR camera and inserts the card.
Which shows Al in his heavy-soled murder shoes.
Not only that...
But much to her surprise, also Ruby.
Yeah. At the stage, and now empowered with this new evidence, Charlie makes the decision to approach the band.
Rest in metal. Seriously?
Jesus, what now?
You know, you guys are sick with this bullshit tribute. You killed him. All you.
Who the do you think you are?
Me? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm the highest bidder on eBay for Gavin's real amp. You know, the one you switched out to kill him? Or maybe I'm the girl with the photographic proof that you knew he was going to be electrocuted. You were all wearing docks with thick rubber soles to insulate you from that electro shit that you sent through Gavin. You know, when you told the fire inspector that you got lucky, I knew it was a lie. I just didn't put it together. You all made your own luck, didn't you?
You know, I may not have my degree, but even I know that's not legal proof.
Gavin was the real deal, you know, and he was a good guy. And you killed him just for what? For some stupid little song about sucker punching?
It's not just a song. It's a hit.
You know what, Ruby? I knew that you were a has-been, but it's worse than that. All right, you're a hack. And maybe I won't get to see you in an orange jumpsuit, but you'll be in that orange build box apron for the rest of your sad little hacky life. Security! Gavin had talent, okay? He was metal. He was real metal. And you're the opposite of metal, all right? You're talc. You hear me? You're fucking talc.
That was brilliant.
Would you agree that talc is the opposite of metal?
I don't know, but again, great character, great performance.
Ruby's not that concerned, though. She tells the others they're playing the song later, and that's it.
Yeah, I got to rock the F out of the song that night, but I think they seem even less confident now.
Yeah. Charlie's being carried out by the security guy at this point, and he obliges her by sitting her down so she can get her stuff, but he tells her he's better not see her again.
Yeah, she promises to continue to throw herself out once she's got her belongings.
We see the narc there. He's still a bit hopeless.
He's been told to F off when he asks if anyone has seen his friend Lucy. So Charlie decides to use his suspected abilities and presents her evidence to him. And after listening, he at first unconvincingly agrees she has a lot of stuff, a lot of info, or a lot of evidence.
She asks if he'd be willing to take it to his boss, but he's not sure what an insurance manager would do with this.
Yeah, he tells her he's not a cop, but an actuary.
Yeah, he's just really bad at buying drugs. He's not an narc at all. Should Charlie not have been able to pick up with the fact he wasn't lying about wanting the drugs?
Is he not? But has he said anything?
Well, he said he was wanting to buy drugs and wasn't being dishonest.
Yeah, but an narc would actually want to buy the drugs. That's what you want to do.
I suppose maybe she wouldn't pick up on
But
it.
earlier on, did he not say that he wasn't an narc? No, maybe he didn't. I can't remember.
I'm not sure. Anyhow, he tells her that maybe the local press will be interested because she's already famous.
She doesn't know what he's talking about.
Takes her aback a little bit. He shows her the viral video of her punching Krampus and she asks when and where this went online.
And she's not happy when he tells her it was 4 hours ago, and that's a reference back.
Well, I was going to say, can Cliff get anywhere in exactly 4 hours?
Of course, yeah.
Is that his time frame? He's there. He's standing behind her as it happens.
And tells her that she's going with him either in the passenger seat or the trunk.
She decides to run and gets a good block from Deuteronomy.
The band are now playing their new song. It seems to be going down well as Charlie makes her way into the crowd, but is closely followed by Cliff, who's managed to break through.
Yeah, he then seems to get into a series of altercations with other members of the crowd.
Yeah, well, he's a square, isn't he, in his suit?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Charlie crowd surfs her way towards the exit.
I love that. As she's doing this, she raises her fingers and gives an FU to Ruby on her way past.
She definitely does. As she leaves, we hear the band receiving a rapturous reception for Sucker Punch, and by the time Cliff gets outside, Charlie is nowhere to be seen.
Some time's passed, I'm not sure if it's a matter of days, weeks, or whatever, but we're at a restaurant, a posh restaurant, where the band are having lunch with potential management, I think.
I thought this was a boardroom. They've got a screen that they're going to put things up on.
Yeah, true, you're maybe right. Well, it could be a conference room and they've hired in. Anyway.
They brought the food in. Anyhow, yes, they're signing papers.
No, they're about to sign papers.
In relation to Sucker Punch.
Yes.
I presume this is a record deal they're signing rather than specifically the rights away to that song.
Well, I'm not sure because we see in the screen that there is a Sucker Punch beverage. They've got a merchandise
so
deal.
Licensing and stuff going on.
Yes, it's obviously a very big deal. It must have been a big hit, which makes me believe that it's maybe a few weeks down the line.
Yeah, it's possibly true. So an executive comes in at this point and says there is a big problem and pulls the contract off the table.
I think it's a lawyer, yeah?
He physically, literally pulls it off the table. It's not just the phrase.
No. Oh, before that, we should say they're enjoying caviar and...
Oh, they're living it up.
Yeah, Esky. Again, this is just like... I think they've now got used to this rock star lifestyle. And I think Esky actually says, yeah, I want this on the road in future.
Caviar?
Yeah.
He's vegan.
Doesn't care now. That's what I'm saying. These morals have been corrupted by by riches.
Yeah. Yes, anyway, as I say, there's a big problem. And a YouTube video is put up on this big screen.
It's a couple of kids who have been tipped off about the origins of the song.
Yes, a couple of their older viewers have told them that it's not an original composition.
No, they proceed to demonstrate that the song, in fact, ripped off the theme to Benson.
Did you enjoy that reveal?
Yeah.
I thought you might enjoy that reveal. Apparently, though, this is the least of the problems that the band now face.
Oh, yeah, but I think they half-heartedly try to defend this, but the lawyer says that it's become more than fraud now. I'm sorry,
sure that's true.
That's not. There's no such. It's not fraud at all. Copying. There's many cases.
They could just say they're sampling it.
Yeah. At the very. See, I've got an issue with this. Well, maybe we'll come back to this.
Okay.
Yes. What's the bigger problem?
Murder Girl's latest episode, which is the #1 podcast in the world. We see a chart. It's #1. Then #2 is You Must Remember This. #3, 4 Guys in a Cellar. #4, Power Your World with Cliff Ravencroft or whoever it is. And #5, Dumbful.
Yeah, big fan of all those.
Well, we'll talk about them later.
Okay.
Murder Girl, however, has all the evidence that Charlie found.
Yeah, we cut to her in the studio.
It's a very serial style presentation.
Yeah, where she introduces Rest in Metal, her new true crime expose on doxology. And as you say, she sits with all this paper evidence in front of her.
We then see a smiling Charlie driving away with one of Gavin's lollipops on her dash and the sound of the windscreen wipers going, which carries on through the credits until Charlie starts singing near the end.
Yeah.
The Sucker Punch song.
Nicely done.
And that's the end.
Yep.
Have you got the tune for Sucker Punch out of your head yet?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got maybe a slight issue with the ending there.
Okay.
So, I am not convinced that anything terrible would happen to the band or something that might end their career. So there's 2 parts to it. There's the copyright infringement. Now, this happens all the time. There's massively high-profile cases. Ed Sheeran recently, I think the Verve had to give all writing credits to the Rolling Stones for their Bittersweet Symphony. But it happens all the time. Worst case scenario, yeah, you don't make any money or royalties from that tune. But if it's big enough, your profile has, you can, people will come to the gigs to hear it. You can build upon that. It's not the end of the world.
No.
And it's certainly not fraud.
No, I wouldn't have said it was fraud.
No, it's not. No one's ever been done for fraud for copying a song.
What about the other problem they face with the murder thing?
Well, that's that, isn't it? Most of these true crime podcasts do not result in any criminal conviction or even any criminal action. I think that, depending on...
Well, almost certainly what would happen is a different podcast would come out 2 or 3 months later with the other side of the story showing how they didn't do it.
Sure.
And then there would maybe be a cottage industry.
All publicity is good publicity. I don't think there's enough evidence to... So this is just reputational. I don't think there's enough evidence to convict.
And even if, public sentiment is that they killed their drummer, there's not going to be a criminal conviction, which means that just becomes...
And fans of the band,
reason to go.
As we know, if you're a hardcore fan of a band, you get people who won't hear anything against somebody like Michael Jackson, for example. Now, there's obviously dodgy. Nothing was proven, and it's very unsavoury, but those fans will not hear a word of it, and they'll still...
So fans of this band
will still
be the same.
Yeah.
However, I think we're meant to imagine that their music career's over and they end up back in Best Buy or Box Bell or whatever it is.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not convinced. But nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. We got a little bit more nuance as well on Charlie's lie detection, because at one point Ruby was speaking and Charlie knew there was a lie in there, but she didn't know which part of what she said was a lie.
Well, that's it. I suppose if you rattle out a few statements in a short period of time,
She couldn't pin it down to one.
yeah,
So that was interesting.
it was.
Where do you want to go next?
That's up to you.
Should we do the trivia and then the people, or people and the trivia?
You choose.
Let's do the trivia, because I've got some of that. and
Go
you've
for
got
it.
The people. So the 4 fictional podcasts
Yes.
that were listed, those other 4, Murder Girl and the other ones about the guys in the cell or whatever, they remain fictional. They were fictional at the time. Still nobody's used those titles. I'm really surprised that no one's done a podcast about Poker Face and called it Murder Girl,
Yes.
because that would fit in quite nicely.
Don't give people ideas.
Well, don't do a
Rivals.
don't do a Poker Face podcast. It's done now. But yeah, another one who I believe you're not going to mention, Krampus, was played by a guy called Brett Bartholomew.
Okay.
No relation of mine.
Right.
However, I think he's also a different Brett Bartholomew from the one that, if you Google Brett Bartholomew, you find who's a motivational speaker.
And he is a relation of
No,
yours.
he's also not a relation of
Right.
mine, but I believe maybe they're brothers. I don't know.
Ah.
Brett and Brett? No, I'm not entirely sure. And the episode title, I think, is just a simple reference to rest in peace, rest in power.
Sorry, you must remember this. Did you mention who that was?
No, I was leaving that one for you. I thought it would be on your
Oh,
list.
no, you're doing it. It is, but you can take
You
it.
must remember this is a podcast, a long established and successful
It's a
podcast.
fantastic podcast, yeah.
Created by Ryan Johnson's wife.
Karina Longworth, yes. It's a podcast in the history of Hollywood. It's,
I probably shouldn't have characterised her in that way. I should have used her name first before we went with Ryan Johnson's
don't worry,
wife.
I'll keep you right, yes.
But yes, it's a very good podcast, and I think it was kind of getting going around about the same time we started the Columbo podcast, because I remember
Yeah,
it being
and
one
look
that
where they are now, eh?
No, it's a great show.
Yeah.
People should listen to it if they haven't already.
Anything else?
Episode title, like I say, really probably to rest in peace, rest in power, that sort of thing, about a heavy metal version. Obviously in this case it was insincere, though probably appropriate given Gavin's.
I mentioned it, Megadeth for some reason in the first episode. I think I compared Charlie's look to,
Okay.
and they've got I think they've got an album called Rust in Peace.
Yeah, it's another twist, isn't it?
I'm not a Megadeth fan, mind you. I'm just saying.
You just mention them all the time.
I don't know why. Yeah. Okay, let's see what I've got here. Yeah, I mentioned Felix Unger. I'm not sure what the connection there is. The Yardbirds. This is not quite accurate. So, Keith Relf did indeed die from electrocution from his amp, but it was 1976, not 77, and he wasn't in the Yardbirds at the time. I think he'd left about 7 or 8 years prior to that. He was also in his basement, not on stage.
I think this is maybe just an apocryphal version of this that gets passed down through the industry, and Deuteronomy picked it up that way.
I think so, yeah. We briefly mentioned Van Halen.
Yes, M&M's.
M&M's, yeah. Again, I'm not sure how accurate this is. I've read a few books on Van Halen and 80s metal, so I've heard this a number of times. But yeah, apparently in their contract, they used to have it stipulated that certain M&M's had to be removed.
Brown ones.
And the reason being is that
They're horrible.
If they weren't removed, then they knew that the other party hadn't thoroughly read the contract, and so therefore what else would not have been...
Yeah, and they wouldn't play the gig apparently.
I'm not sure that ever happened.
Don't know.
It didn't. I'm sure it was just a case of double checking. So if they knew that was missing, maybe they get their team to go through the rest of it and ensure that everything else was still in place. The vocals were a mix of Chloe Savini and the singer from a Judas Priest cover band.
That's a good combo.
Yeah. Okay, before we get to the cast, will we look at the clues and the motive and the gotcha?
Okay.
So motive, financial fame and a second chance.
Yeah.
Clues. Okay, Ruby claiming they got lucky, the magpie trash situation, Ruby claiming to be sorry about Gavin dying, the eBay listings, Al's confession song, Deuteronomy being conveniently fired, the mic stand, and the camera footage of the footwear.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The gotcha, I think it was quite weak. This episode.
Well, she had all the lyrics and stuff, so she knew that Gavin had written the song. That doesn't prove that anyone killed anyone.
Nope. I'm not sure you can prove there's been a murder here.
I mean, I suppose you've got the evidence of Deuteronomy that the amp had 3 prongs and that's been changed, so it's all circumstantial.
Although we have mentioned it before, it's worth reiterating. I quite like the fact that Charlie can't go to the police because of her being on the run. So she has to do it. She has to be inventive with how she punishes people.
Did you like the fact that Cliff showed up at the end of the episode?
Yeah. We've got product placement as well.
Okay.
So I've now got major and minor product placement.
Okay, what have you got for this week?
So the major ones, that's ones that are actually spoken about. We've got Tama drums. We've got, or not necessarily spoken about, but very prominent. We've got the Hot Topic clothing line. That was a bag on screen. And eBay, obviously.
We've had eBay before, of course, in the first episode with the Playboy magazines.
Sure. Ones that are a little bit more subtle would be Jack Daniels.
Yeah, from the music.
We saw the Nikon DSLR. You must remember this podcast.
Yeah.
And the drum seat was DW, which is, I think, is Drummer's Workshop. But there was a logo there on the seat when it went down.
Cool. Should we look at the Who Did Crimes this week?
Yeah, go for it.
So the band killed the drummer. May or may not have done fraud. We think not. Mm-hmm. Charlie assaulted Krampus, but is that self-defense?
It wasn't self-defense, but it wasn't deliberate.
Yeah. Cliff and some of the crowd were punching people. There were assaults. Throwing the stapler at Gavin's probably an assault.
For sure, yeah.
And then the narc guy trying to buy drugs is probably illegal.
Yeah, well, he wasn't an narc, so he was just a guy trying to buy drugs.
Yeah. So that's probably a crime.
Oh, if you don't buy it, is trying to buy? Is that like attempted?
I suspect in America, most places, it's probably illegal to try and buy drugs.
I'm not sure. I think if you were a cop, if you were undercover as a drug dealer, you would actually have to hand over you had to complete the transaction, or else it wouldn't be.
Well, that's for selling though, but if you're buying, I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that might be a crime.
Okay. This episode, first broadcast on the 26th of January 2023. It was directed by Tiffany Johnson, no relation to Ryan. She's a director and producer known for Girls' Room, Black Monday, Boomerang, which I believe is a spin-off of the Eddie Murphy movie, and Dear White People. It was written by Christine Boylan. She was born in 1977 and has been involved in 8 episodes. IMDb are terrible. I don't know if there's a change, but it's really hard to find out, because if you actually click into her credits and then have a list of the episodes she's involved in, it doesn't say she wrote this episode, it's just executive producer. So you have to go on an episode by episode basis to see that she's a writer.
You sure?
Yes. Yep. You can check it out later on.
Okay.
You might know her work from Once Upon a Time, The Punisher, Castle, or Citadel. She was a Fulbright scholar in Germany and is the founder of Bespoke Plays, which hosts staged readings on both coasts of the States.
That sounds cool.
The cast. Ruby Ruins was obviously played by Chloe Savini. Born on the 18th of November 1974, she has appeared in Russian Doll, Bloodline, Those Who Kill, Big Love, Dogville, Boys Don't Cry, and I first saw her in her breakout role with the quite controversial Kids from 1995.
Okay.
Gavin was played by Nicholas Krilo. Born on the 8th of June 1997, he has appeared in Outer Banks, She-Hulk, Teenage Bounty Hunters, and also Stranger Things.
Who was he in Stranger Things?
I think he was like Boy or something like that.
Okay.
Teenage Boy. He has, not necessarily in the episode here, but his IMDb profile, he reminds me of a young, is it Skeet Ulrich from Scream?
Scream, yeah.
John Darnielle, I'm not sure, played Al. He was born in March 1967. He's not appeared in much because he's a singer and guitarist in a band called the Mountain Goats. I think that might be quite culty. I don't mean like the band they call it, I mean...
So does he look like a goat because he's in a band called the Mountain Goats? Is he trying to...
Yeah.
Oh.
Who knows? Esky. You like Esky?
Yeah, he reminded me of somebody.
Okay. G.K. Umi. You might have seen him in Run All Night. I think that's a Liam Neeson one. I quite enjoyed it. Hostages, Gossip Girl, and a few different variations of Law and Order. He's a former amateur boxer. I think he got to the semis of a Golden Gloves back in the day. Deuteronomy, played by Chuck Cooper. Born in 1954 and has been in Tick Tick Boom, Power, House of Cards, Law and Order, and NYPD Blue. He won a Best Actor Tony in 1997, and he's married to playwright Deborah Brevoort, and his daughter Lily is also a successful actor.
I liked Tick Tick Boom, Andrew Garfield.
I've not seen it yet.
It's worth watching.
I think, in fact, John Darnielle may have been involved in the score in that, amongst other things.
There's a few Broadway folks involved in this series.
Yeah,
We've already talked about a couple before.
we have. And finally, we've got John Hodgman, who played the Narc. He was born on the 3rd of June 1971 and has appeared in Coraline, The Invention of Lying. Good Ricky Gervais, but I think he's quite underrated actually. Arthur, the
There you go.
remake. Married, Community, Dicktown, and one of the worst movies ever made, movie 43. He interestingly played the PC in PC versus Mac alongside Justin Long for in the Apple ads.
Okay.
He used to work as a literary agent and represented the Bruce Campbell among other people.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah. And finally, I should have mentioned Chloe Sevigny and Natasha Lyonne have been best of friends for nearly, or maybe over 25 years now. And I think there's if you look online, there's lots of fantastic pictures of them together when they're younger at premieres and all sorts of stuff, you know,
Okay.
enjoying their life and with everything ahead of them.
They certainly worked well together in this episode.
They did, yeah. I think there were a couple of girls about town at one point,
Right. Back in the day.
back in the day.
Next week, we've got an episode called Time of the Monkey, where we will find Charlie befriending a couple of retirement home residents with an interesting past.
Until then,
Cheerio.
bye-bye.